All right, welcome back to another episode of Blown Coverage. And just like that, the season is over, and we are getting into the playoffs, getting into conference championships. And we had a pretty big week last weekend. Obviously, you know, Texas A&M, Texas is where we're going to have to start. So I say we
Oh
just
my
right
gosh.
into
I don't
that.
know if that's actually smart because we might not get to anything else if we start there, to be honest.
I think it is smart because I actually think it'll be decently quick. But thinking about it, the other games, I don't know if there's a lot to be said about the other games other than what is obvious. But obviously, we'll have a few thoughts on that. But with what I have to say with Texas A&M is pretty straightforward. But I want to hear your take. I'd rather you go first on this.
Oh
Winners
my
go
gosh.
first.
All
Just give
right.
me your thoughts on the game, whatever you want to say when it comes to if you want to talk playoffs, whatever. Just go ahead, give me your thoughts.
I would probably say I was not closely watching the game for the first half, unfortunately, just because the Thanksgiving dinner was happening at the time. The second half I was watching pretty closely, and I man, I really and truly I was like, man, we're gonna fumble this at some point. They're gonna come back and win, whatever. And it was, uh, it was just awesome. Let me tell you, it was awesome. I don't really have like too many thoughts, to be honest with you. It's like a typical rivalry game. I think it's pretty hard fought, and the thing that people were like, "Oh, Marcel Reed and the Heisman," and I was on that too, and I kind of feel bad, like because I don't really think like what he did was necessarily in character, like in the fourth quarter, like throwing pretty much almost back to back interceptions. I don't necessarily think. I know you're like you kind of have this little hesitation with him, but for the most part, he's been pretty solid for you guys throughout the season. Now you guys got weapons like all over the field, so it's like okay, if the guy's at least serviceable, he's going to have some good numbers and whatnot. So in a sense, I mean, it was awesome for me, right? But for you, that kind of sucks that it ended the way it did. Um, I don't know. I mean, it was an awesome, like, that game was just kind of like epitomized why Rivalry Week is so awesome. Just because I was like, the whole time I was like, oh, oh, well, like the Emperor Palpatine meme, I'm sent you. I mean, it was just, I don't know. It's awesome. I don't know. It's awesome being on this side of it, thankfully. And I like how you were silent all weekend as well. That's really all I have to say, though. Maybe if like you say some things or whatever, it'll pop something in my mind. But that's all I can
Well,
think of.
so before I say anything, I want to get to this now. What are your thoughts? We talked about it a little
Oh,
bit last week in terms of playoffs.
so I think really and truly there will be a fundamental issue. And I'm not saying this just because of Texas, but if we did not schedule Ohio State at the beginning of the year and we were 10-2 right now, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that we're in the playoffs. Would you agree with that to some extent? With our resume, I
Yeah,
think right
I
now,
think so. I think so.
yes. So, in other words, if we were to miss the playoffs, basically what the committee is saying is, "Oh, you played a good team, you don't get in." Now, trust me, I get it. It doesn't necessarily look pretty with a three-loss team in there. I get that. However, I think two teams in the Big 12, I'm sorry, I don't think that's necessarily the same thing as like being from the Big 10, the SEC. I just don't. I Texas Tech, fine, fine, but BYU, I don't really know. I think it's an interesting story, but I don't know if they can truly go in there and compete. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, but I just think there's a fundamental issue because basically what that's saying is, hey, make sure your record's pretty and you can get in, kind of thing. You know.
Yeah, so I think there's no shot they're going to put Texas in, but I will tell you, I want to say I think they should. The problem is that's easy to say here. I don't think they have the balls to do it, but I
Yeah.
understand why. And the problem really is a format issue, and I don't really know a way around it because you do have to leave someone out. And let's just take BYU because of the teams that are in the conversation, they seem to be the weak link. At the end of the day, they've lost one time to the number 5 team in the country.
Yeah, I know. I know. I know.
And it's like, so what do you do about that? And I agree the conferences are not equal. And this idea that there's something about, oh, well, if you have 3 losses, you're out. I don't see why it should be like that. I mean, if you're in a tougher conference or a tougher schedule, isn't that the point of having a committee that can go over the schedules and say, hey, you know, this 3 loss team does have one of the losses is Ohio State. And like that's hard to argue. Is that going to hurt like out of conference play? But then you just have to look at it from all angles. It's just like, okay,
Yeah.
fine, that's a great resume. Now, who do we leave out?
Yeah.
And
It's
that's
definitely
like,
hard. It's just I don't know. I just feel like people are going to be more hesitant if they like look at this and say, "Well, dang, this schedule." I mean, if I just think like in the coming years, they will remember this and they will say, "Okay, well, let's just schedule an easy non-conference game." And I think like for several weeks, I think the Texas Ohio State game was like the most watched game of the college football season, probably until week 6 or whatever when the big games were on. But anyway, I think it's a good thing for college football, like to have really big, like non-conference games like that. It's huge. Like I was amped up the whole week for it, and it's definitely like there's a huge difference between when your team is playing Ohio State or like New Mexico State or whatever the team is. That if you have a shot, I guess you could say. But anyway, yeah, I mean it's definitely hard. It's definitely hard, but I think the biggest thing is like and you could, I mean, I know it's any way you cut the pie here, you're kind of screwing somebody, right? And it's kind of unfortunate. I guess let me ask you this, and we don't really have to get like too far into it, I guess, because really I would need to do some more research on like everything as far as that goes. But do you think simply adding like a couple more teams would fix this solution?
I don't know.
Because yeah,
It's like because then it's like you're just gonna say that every year. It's like,
I
well, do we
know
need a couple
because
more?
it's going to be like right now it's like the 13th team. Like who do you leave out?
Right.
Then next year it's going to be the 15th. Or if you were to do that and add two more
And this
teams,
does seem like a very like, special year where those teams that are right on the cusp are all have like a pretty good argument. Now, I still say the biggest thing is leaving out that group of 5 team. I don't understand why we have to include them. If you want to give them
oh,
something of
100%.
value,
Yeah, I forgot about
like
that.
then fine. Like then give them something of value. And then also like look at how much of it and we'll get into this, I'm sure, but look how much of a disaster the ACC has been. And like
Yeah,
why do we have to get them in? Like I don't see because now if Duke wins, they are the ACC champ, and that doesn't mean that they would get in, but that means we may get 2 group of 5 teams rather than a Vanderbilt, Texas, Miami, whatever. So
yeah, which
those
is
little
ridiculous.
things, like I just think could be cleaned up. I don't know. I don't know. You know what the actual best format is, and I'm not saying we should do it, but it actually kind of is the 2014 playoff because the 2014 playoff, if you look at it, it rewards conference champions a little bit more because you could argue conference champions don't mean as much in this current format. And you're getting in more teams like from the deeper conferences, and they would get home games for their first games. And I don't know that, but the problem is that's just like a lot of teams. Would it be fun to watch? Sure, but I don't think it'll happen. I'm not even saying it should. I think this may be something you just have to deal with, and like there's just going to be teams left out. Yeah, I don't know, but I guess I should get to maybe before we get more into playoffs because we're going to talk more playoffs. But as far as my thoughts, quickly, really just a couple things. I said this game would come down to one person. I think it came down to two, but Marcel just is lacking. Yes, he threw the interception at the end of the game. You know, he there's just something there with him that is just lacking. He struggles to throw the ball down the field, especially when you really need him to. And the reason I say this comes down to two people is not just because of Marcel, but I really put a lot of this on Colin Klein. I thought the play calling was really bad, way too conservative. And the whole time I was watching the game, it's like I was waiting for it to start for A&M. I was like, okay, when are they gonna like start trying on offense? Because it was a lot of just like kind of like basic stuff. And at first, I could kind of
Yeah.
understand. It's like, okay, they're trying to get in the rhythm, and they literally just kind of kept doing that until it was too late in the fourth quarter where you had to score. So that kind of put Marcel in a tough position. And I understand maybe that was kind of the game plan. They thought, okay, well, something's going to open up eventually. But I really have to put a lot of this on Colin Klein. I am not happy with the way he called this game. And Marcel, look, yeah, I agree with you. He's fine. No one's calling for him to be benched, but he was the number 3 pick for the Heisman. Way too high up. He is not
Yeah,
bad.
yeah. There's think about oh my gosh, blanked out the Indiana quarterback. You got Jeremiah
Mendoza,
Love.
he's number 1. Yeah,
Yeah, Mendoza, Jeremiah
Sam,
Love. Yeah, saying there's another
Love.
quarterback. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I
There's
would
another.
even say, well, CJ Carr, but that's probably a little bit different. But anyway, point
Yeah,
being
yeah,
with Marcel, he's got issues throwing the ball. Now, I will say maybe this you have to turn it into a good thing in the sense that okay, well maybe this will open some eyes because they've been flawed all season, but they've been able to get away with it. And I think now maybe they'll be forced to kind of look in the mirror and say, okay, these are some things we need to do better because at the end of the day, we're going to the playoffs. We're going to host a playoff game. Season's not over. We're not going to be forced to play in the Alamo, unlike some others. This doesn't have to be the highlight of our season. So, last thing I'll say is Le'Veon Moss. Got to get him back. We missed him at the end of the year last year, missed him this year. There was a chance he could come back for this game this year. He wasn't there. Without him, it is hard to overstate how different the offense is. He will be back for the playoffs. So figure out the offense. That does seem to be the weak link. If you look at it, like you say, oh, well, A&M gave up some yards and points. I don't think the defense was that bad. I think the
yeah.
defense was put in awkward positions all game because of the offense.
Hmm.
So that's all I have to say. I guess the last thing I'd say as far as the Texas side, Arch Manning, I thought Arch Manning was mid, and I thought Marcel was mid. I
Yeah,
think
he
now you're
largely
seeing people do
was.
the reverse with Arch Manning, and it just goes to show like the difference between winning and losing. Because I think Arch was okay.
Well,
Did he even get over 50% passing? Like there was some
I don't think so. But here's the
there were some
deal.
times. Last thing. There were
Go
some
ahead.
times when he should have ran the ball, and he did end up running the ball pretty well. But I
Yeah.
remember there was one where he could have ran for like a touchdown, and he just like didn't know what to do. So he, to me, looks the same as he did against Georgia. It's just Georgia's a better team than A&M and was able to get out to a lead, whereas in this game Texas was able to get out to a lead. Uh, Look, I think Arch is fine. I've said that all season, and we'll see what he is next year. But this idea that he is now would be the Heisman, hold up on that because you're seeing that talk. You're seeing that talk. But
Well, that should surprise you because they already had that talk, like at the beginning of the year before he even like really started the game, right? But um, here's the deal. So for the most part, I do agree with you because he was mid, and I was going to say maybe even arguably slightly lower than mid until like I would honestly even say the fourth quarter, to be honest with you. But here's the deal. I think what you lack with Marcel Reed, like the confidence to like will your team to win, I feel like that's kind of where the difference is between the two. I think Arch Manning has that. I'm not saying that just because of the A&M game, but it's like there's just this like I don't know this feel about him, I guess. And I'm trying to think like okay, so the Mississippi State game, I know the Kentucky game was an absolute crapshoot, but he got a little bit better like at the very end. So I feel like his play gets a little better as the game goes on, minus the Georgia game. just because Georgia's. I think Georgia's
Sure.
very underrated, actually, to be honest with you. Um, but anyway, it was a great game. I'm very glad that we have the game back, just because. And really and truly, I seriously want to think about how many. Like, here's the deal: the Michigan Ohio State game. Something that dawned on me like over the weekend. That's not even an in-state rivalry. They may have all this hate and stuff, but it's not necessarily like in-state, like where there's like literally families mixed together, at the same table
Yeah.
having a meal. I don't know. I think there's something about it, but um, I'm trying to think. I don't know if you had this thought, not to necessarily like say the calls were bad, but just the officiating. Just the officiating was horrible. It was like they would stop, take 5 minutes, and change the call, or they would stop and they couldn't even get the correct call, and then we'd have to go back and fix it. And I was like, oh my gosh, dude, this is pretty atrocious, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Um, Man, there's more I want to say, but I kind of forgot. So anyway, do you want to go to the uh, Ohio State Michigan game? I guess.
Sure, we can go to that. That was kind of the primetime game on, or not primetime game, but the prime game at the noon window on Saturday. And yeah, my thoughts just quickly. I don't have that many thoughts. I think
Yeah,
Ohio State looked like Ohio State, and good for them because they couldn't do that the last 5 years.
yeah,
And at first it looked like, oh my God, is Michigan going to do this
yeah. I
again?
know.
Like that first quarter,
I
six to
started
three.
laughing. Yeah, yeah, I did
Yeah,
too.
but at the end of the day, I mean, this was it was snowing. I could maybe make the argument the most impressive win of the season for Ohio State, just because rivalry game, and they
Well,
kind
just
of
what it
took
means. Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Yeah, they just took care of business, and now it's just like, okay, I think there's very few teams in the country that are going to be able to truly compete with them.
Oh
So
yeah,
that's just kind of my thoughts.
yeah. Same. I think Ohio State's like super, really talented, really deep. I think there's a good chance that Ryan Day could come out with like another national championship at the end of this. I would be curious to see like which team presses them. And I know you're big on Notre Dame in that sense, and I think that would be a good game. I'm just curious. I think Georgia would be an interesting matchup for them too, potentially. Um, but yeah, that's really all I have to say. Still because I think because Michigan's 9-3, true freshman, and I think they have like half of their offense is true freshmen or redshirt freshmen. So keep that in mind. That's pretty impressive, to be honest with you.
Right. Yeah, I think they have a pretty good future ahead.
Yeah, they
I'm
do.
very. It's going to be very excited for next year. So yeah. Now let me ask you this. Now maybe it was the Ohio State Michigan game. If that's so, tell me. But what other game that you watched? What did you think was the best game of the weekend?
Mm. Aside from our game, of course, I got to actually watch probably the fourth quarter of the Iron Bowl. That was pretty good.
You
Really and
only
truly.
watched the fourth quarter? What were
I
you
know.
doing? It's a rivalry weekend.
I know. Black Friday shopping.
Okay. Well,
My
then
wife.
I'll find someone else on this podcast. That should
No,
disqualify.
my wife asked, and I had to say yes.
Well, listen,
Good.
I thought the best game of the weekend was Alabama Auburn,
Yeah.
and it is too bad that I mean, the fourth quarter was good,
Yeah.
but it really was the game of the weekend.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if I have anything to say about it that isn't just kind of like obvious, but
Yeah.
very impressive by Alabama to go in there because it just shows like the difference in the SEC and some of these other conferences. Because you could look and say, "Oh, Auburn's a
Yeah.
5-7 team," but if you watch the game, no, this is just different. Like these
Game that
teams
came
are
to mind was the Tech and West Virginia game. I know that's
right,
not necessarily a rivalry, but Tech just blew the crap out of them.
right.
I'm trying to think. Ole Miss, I mean, Ole Miss did pretty well against Mississippi State, but I'm trying to think. There's really not that much disparity in the rivalry games typically, unless there's just a juggernaut,
Yeah,
Like, look, Georgia Tech, Georgia, 16-9.
right.
And let me, sorry to cut you off there too, but I think what's a pretty, oh, LSU, Oklahoma was another one. Um, I think it's almost a crime that OU does not play Oklahoma State anymore rivalry week.
I know.
I mean, honestly, that's pretty absurd in my opinion. I mean, that's just like, that's what college football is about, is like the rivalries. Why would you take that away? And OU dominated that thing. I wouldn't say like, oh, you never know who's going to win that one. It's like maybe Oklahoma State wins 1 out of 10 or something, but still, who cares? Anyway, go on with what you were saying.
Well, I mean, I agree. Even OU Nebraska, but that was a while
Yeah.
back. But that used to be the rivalry. But yeah,
Yeah.
anyway, just as far as Alabama Auburn, I feel bad for Auburn because it really looked like they were about to drive down and maybe tie the
Yeah.
game. And who was that? Coleman that fumbled. I think it was Coleman.
Yes. Yes. Their
Yeah,
stud wide receiver.
yeah, and
I felt
it's
bad.
yeah, I felt bad for him. That sucks. But also, Alabama, they had it, what, 4th and 2? What was it? That
Yeah.
down there on the
Yeah.
goal line, they could have kicked the field goal. They go for it, they get it. That's extremely gutsy. So, in a way, it feels like, just talking about now A&M, Alabama, and Georgia. I kind of thought coming into the week, it feels like destiny that it's just going to be Alabama, Georgia in the title game. Like, it just kind of feels like that's going to be the game.
But
And
here's the man. I don't know if there's that same ring to it like it used to be with Nick Saban versus Kirby.
I agree, actually. I agree. I was gonna kind of get to that,
Yeah.
but
I mean, I just
either
and
way,
maybe Kalen DeBoer will silence all of us within 5 years. I
mhm.
and honestly, like me and you have both been pretty high on Alabama, and rightfully so. I think they've played well. They've had a very hard schedule to come out of it with only 2 losses. That's pretty impressive, to be honest. Um, we'll see. I will say it kind of does suck for A&M to lose one game and not be in the SEC championship.
So only 3 teams in SEC history have lost one game and missed the SEC championship. 2025 Texas A&M, 2020 Texas A&M,
Oh,
and 2025 Ole Miss. So
oh,
pretty
so 2 teams.
unlucky.
Yeah, that's right. Because yeah, Ole Miss too is in that same department. Which we'll have to get to that in a minute or here in a little bit too, by the way. But
Agreed, agreed. But last thought on Auburn, I'll be curious to see what they do coaching wise. DJ Durkin has been, kind of on the top of the list for coaching candidates. Did he do enough to maybe get this job? Are they going to hire from within? I don't know, something to watch. But I will say, it seems like Auburn, even though they haven't won that many games, it seems like they've been playing better. And it looks like this
I
new
hired,
quarterback of theirs has been decent as well.
yeah,
So I think they're a team to watch.
they
But
hired, oh my gosh, I believe USF's coach. Yeah,
oh, did they?
yeah,
I
they
thought
did.
that was Arkansas. Alex Golish.
Arkansas hired Memphis coach.
Oh, okay,
Florida hired the Tulane coach.
that's
Arkansas
right. I
hired,
remember seeing that now. I remember seeing that now. That's
yeah,
right. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
All right, and then Summerall looks like he's probably going to Florida. I think that's the
That's the Tulane coach, right? Yeah,
no. Summerall is. I mean, you know what? Maybe he is. Yeah. Okay. I think I'm getting people confused.
yeah.
USF. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
I mean, kudos to Auburn though for coming out and playing a really good game because I remember like we left right after the game started, I believe, or maybe I just checked the score or whatever, and I saw like I think Alabama was up 17-3 or 17-0 or whatever in the second quarter. I was like, oh man, okay, Alabama's just going to blow it out, and I was like, this is going to be kind of a letdown rivalry year, to be honest with you, because aside from ours and the Georgia Tech game, pretty much everybody else just handled business, which isn't always the case. Maybe there's a couple other teams too, but Anyway,
Nice.
and then I turn it on. And I'm like, holy crap, dude, this is a game.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No, I
so
know.
kudos to them though, because like you're saying, they're 5-7, And I was telling my wife's grandfather like this, it's insane. Just like I was explaining to him how important this game was because for Alabama, excuse me, Alabama, if they lost, they wouldn't go to the title game, probably not get in the playoff. Huge game for them. Auburn, they're 5-6. They lose the game, they don't get to go to a bowl more than I mean, they don't get to go to a bowl game. They win, they get to at least go to a bowl game. And without a head coach for a month, it's kind of I mean, I won't say it's an accomplishment, but that's pretty good still. And it's funny enough, Hugh Freeze, once he left, it's like the team had reversed. Pretty decent on offense. The defense has kind of showed some holes, but anyway,
Yeah. Okay. So going through these games here, trying to think of where to go next. The next place I want to go, I don't know if you guys can watch it because apparently you're out shopping, but Vandy, Tennessee.
I got to watch yeah, before I left a little
Okay.
bit.
Yeah, this game, I was so impressed with Vandy, and it's to the
Yeah.
point where I don't know if Vandy's now getting enough talk for the playoffs. I don't think they'll get in, and it would make the Texas thing even weirder because now you'd have
Yeah.
three teams that Texas beat in the playoffs with Texas right there on the edge.
Yeah.
But you talk about a team playing good at the right time. I think
Yeah.
Vandy's just been so impressive to
Diego
go into
Pavia.
Tennessee. Pavia looking great to go into Tennessee, win. I thought the way they beat Auburn a couple weeks ago was very impressive. Like they've been
Yeah.
able to put up points now. It seems like they figured something out offensively.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to get in. But at the end of the day, they beat their rival at Tennessee somewhat handily. Close game, obviously. First half, they pull away. Second half, yeah, I mean, it's a great way to kind of, I guess, cap off the magical season that has been for Vandy. And something we haven't got to is Clark Lee has signed an
Mm.
extension for Vanderbilt, 6-year extension. And we talked about that, how they have that quarterback recruit coming
Yeah.
in.
The crystal ball prediction.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
bet you that did have something to do with it. I'm a little surprised myself, but
Me
hey,
too.
maybe he thinks he could do something at Vandy long term. Clearly he does. So
Yeah,
that
I
was
love and uh, I think so. I think this kind of applies here on game day. Pat McAfee was the only one up there. I'm sure Nick Saban was probably saying the same thing behind the curtain or whatever, but he was like, Lane, you could always stay at Ole Miss. That's fine too. Saying that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And maybe Clark Lee is just happy where he's at.
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I mean, I get that to an extent, but anyway, I think it's interesting. The quarterback we're referring to as the number one quarterback in next year's class. They have put out a couple of recruiting analysts have put out crystal ball predictions that he will be flipping his commitment from Georgia to Vanderbilt. So anyway, very interesting development. I don't know if Vandy has had a number one overall recruit go to the school, or I'm sure they've had a 5-star, but maybe I don't know. That's maybe an iffy, but anyway, interesting.
Yeah. Yep. So, congrats to Vandy on the
Yeah,
season. They really did finish well. I mean, to finish 10-2, their only losses were, at Texas and then at Alabama, so great season for them.
yeah,
I thought it was very impressive. For Tennessee, I think they finished about how you thought they would, maybe even better, 8-4. It's all about
yeah,
next year for them. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say about that game. I guess quickly, I want to talk about the game that maybe makes it toughest on the committee, and that is Miami versus Pitt. And that is, Miami, Pittsburgh found its way into the rankings again, and then the moment they get in the rankings, they get blown out again. This was an interesting game because Notre Dame just faced Pittsburgh, and everyone's talking about how Notre Dame blows out Pittsburgh. Is Miami going to be able to do the same, or are they going to go into cold weather and not know what to do? And they just handled Pitt. I mean, they
yeah,
won 38-7. I had my eye on the game and was kind of expecting this to be a good game, and it really wasn't. Miami just blew doors. So back to the playoff conversation, like, what do you do? Miami is clearly very talented. They've had two pretty bad losses, especially now after SMU could have gone to the ACC championship, but decided to lose to Cal. And then obviously Louisville looked like a good team and they just fell off. So they've got two really pretty bad losses. I mean, there's worse losses, but, bad. Um, they've also got good wins. That's the thing. And I saw something the other day, and I thought this was a great point, and I'm guilty of this as well. Notre Dame gets more credit for losing to Miami than Miami gets credit for beating Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a good point. Like, that's a good point. Miami, at the end of the day, beat Notre Dame. So I could see them, they're never going to take Notre Dame out, but I could see them forcing Miami in. And is BYU going to just be that odd team out? I don't know, but I thought Miami really made it tough for the committee by doing this against what is a decent team, and they did it on the road. So yeah, I guess quickly, do you have any thoughts on this game? And then let's go ahead and give me your thoughts on who should be that 11th team between BYU, who the options are: BYU, Miami, Notre Dame. Seems like Notre Dame's in, but who would you go with?
So I think Nick Saban said it pretty well, to be honest with you. Um, Miami, if they're able to get into the playoff, they can be a very hot team. They can go in there and compete with anybody because they have freaks all over the field. Between Miami, BYU, you could at least make a case that, okay, if Miami doesn't like play, if Carson Beck can play clean and efficient, Miami could potentially go all the way. I mean, that's really how good Miami is. Can we say the same for BYU? I think at best, depending on who BYU plays that first game, they can maybe get past that, but I don't know if they could get past the second round, Um, I would maybe say, and that may be the same thing for Texas too, by the way, if they get in, depending on who we play the first game, we could get past that. Um, I don't know. It is tough, right? Okay, so we've got Notre Dame at 9, Alabama 10, BYU 11, Miami 12, Vandy 13. Listen, I think just the head-to-head value, you probably have to put Texas over Vandy in that sense. Miami over BYU, and honestly, I would probably. This is going to just really make it look like I'm biased against the Big 12 now because I'm not part of that conference anymore. But I do think there's a difference between BYU, Miami. Actually, I think there's a difference between Texas, Vandy, Miami, and BYU. Okay. I will not be apologetic about that. Um, the question is, hmm, dang. I mean, it is tough. It's almost like going back to seventh grade having to learn algebra with Miss Ussery.
Here's the
Yeah.
problem in terms of conferences. Like,
Yeah,
it's not like you can say Miami plays in a good conference. You could argue the Big 12 maybe is better than the ACC. I
that's
mean,
that's true.
that's the thing. So, in BYU at the end of the day went 11-1, and they've lost to the number 5 team twice. So I think it's tough, but my personal opinion, I think you kind of have to stick with BYU, and you just have to deal with the fact that Notre Dame is going to get in over Miami. At the end of the day, Notre Dame does have better losses. It sucks that you have to keep saying that, but Miami, you can't just lose in a weak conference to two bad ACC teams. Notre Dame lost to Miami, which is a good team, but then the other loss was to A&M, which is a top, it's going to be a top 10 team depending on where they're ranked. So it's just I don't know. I think you can't just leave BYU out. But what if they get beat like 41-0 in the Big 12 championship? That's the thing. That's the thing.
Well, here's the deal because I believe when they played Tech earlier, I think Tech pretty much went in there and handled business against them. And granted, BYU didn't have their stud running back. I think that kind of shows that there's like how much separation there is in the Big 12, like the two best teams in the Big 12. Both times they've played, Tech beat the crap out of them both times.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's always interesting. I mean, it really is. It'll be. I'm sure the rankings will come out on uh,
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Yeah. Oh man, that's gonna be
Which won't
crazy
give
too.
everything away because you still have the conference championship games, which will
Yeah.
move some things around. But it's mostly going to tell us what they're going to do.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
they're in a tough position. I mean, I don't think they can necessarily get it right, but
Well, you're right. Every year, somebody's going to be pissed about something, and I might be one of those people this year. I don't know.
I don't know how you could be pissed. To be honest, like I agree that it's been very a bit unlucky, but I think I don't know how you could expect to be in being everything that we just talked about. Like they're
Well, no,
just in a
I'm
tough
just saying,
position
like,
where they're
oh
not
my
going to go
gosh.
with
Well,
Texas.
I guess I'll just go back to the saying, like, you know,
So you're thinking there's a chance that they're going to put Texas in?
I think at the very beginning of this, I think you said, "Oh yeah, I think they're going to put Texas in." Yeah.
No, I don't. I don't think they have the guts to put Texas in.
Okay. I remember you saying that, but I
And
was
I'm not saying I would because it's a tough thing because then you're going to have to leave some other teams out that I think just it's hard to just move them back now. I think it's very tough. I'm just saying I wouldn't expect Texas to be. I'd be shocked if they put Texas in. Like I'd be shocked.
I guess it okay. My comment was I might be in that camp of people that would be pissed of being left out. What I meant in my head was it would suck to be left out. Not because here's the deal, because there's definitely cases being made for us to be in there, I think our resume says that. But also, do I know, or I know for a fact we wouldn't be able to go in there and like legitly challenge for the national championship. Our team's just not there yet this year. The argument is, could we play against these teams better than other teams in the playoff ranked ahead of us? Could probably so, to be honest with you. Maybe a couple. Okay, what Miami team would you get? BYU. I don't. I think honestly, a Texas Alabama game would be a little interesting. To be honest with you, I don't know. I don't know. I think it is hard for the committee though, just because like five. What was it? We've played five top 10 teams or whatever. Lost two, won three. I don't know. Anyway, we can get off beating the bush of Texas getting in or whatnot because it doesn't come down to you or I. It's like five or six people or however many people are on that committee. But
Well, let's finish up then with some of these games that we haven't got to yet. I guess the next one that comes to mind for me briefly, Georgia Tech. This
yes,
was closer than I thought it would be.
hmm
Like I kind of thought Georgia would. I don't know. I thought it would be a higher scoring game, I guess. And I don't know. It just wasn't. I credit to Georgia Tech again for playing hard, but it really shows that Georgia's kind of coming into their own. And they were, if they're going against a team like that is kind of one dimensional, like Georgia Tech is, you really just can't do that against a team like Georgia. But I do wonder about Georgia offensively. Like there just seems to be something there that I don't know. They don't have. I'm talking in terms of like winning it all. Like every once in a while they can have some good games, but
yeah.
I trust Gunnar Stockton to take this team the distance. I don't know, but yeah, quite a
Just
fall off.
think about Stetson Bennett the first year. He was playing. Or actually, I think he came in and filled in. if I'm not mistaken, and like took them and won a championship. Just think about all those. I think they're pretty similar as far as quarterbacks. Maybe athleticism and like actual throwing ability would give an edge to Stockton. But anyway, I'm just saying offensively, I think it's kind of interesting, like where Georgia's at. It kind of mirrors where they were a couple of years ago. But at least then they had Brock Bowers and uh, they had a little bit more offensively at that time than they do now, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and this is probably going to be the last edition, as I said, coming into the week of this game being as good as it was. Although you never know, their coach is very good, so we'll see what they do as
Yeah,
far
we'll
as
see.
Georgia
He
Tech
stays there
goes.
too, right?
Right, right.
I
So
think that
yeah,
we
that's
can kind of lead into the coaching changes.
right.
Um, so Arkansas getting the Memphis coach, the USF coach going to Auburn, Tulane coach going to Florida, and then of course Lane Kiffin, going to LSU. So I guess let's discuss the Lane Kiffin thing. Just get in the mix with everybody else, the cobbler dish. So, in my opinion, and I think Nick Saban said a very good point. You know, Lane Kiffin right now to have success at Ole Miss, he is having to dip into the portal every single year and get like a plethora of players. He's dubbed the portal king. Is that any way to build a perennial championship team? I would think not, right? Because most of the, I mean, you might be able to get a stud that's a sophomore or a freshman or whatever every once in a while, but most of these people are probably juniors, seniors. They're going to be with your team a year or two, right? So the case for LSU is at least he could go recruit better and actually like build. It'd be easier for him to build like a championship culture at LSU than Ole Miss from that standpoint. And Coach Sarkeesian or the Texas coach, I feel like he manages the portal pretty well. And like something I've heard him say, and I really agree with it. It's like we try to just get at most 15 guys just because it's very hard to keep that same culture if you just bring in new people every year. And so it's easier to just assimilate 10 to 15 people instead of 20, to keep that same consistent culture in there. And I think that was just a huge roadblock for Lane. And um, I don't know. It sucks. Don't get me wrong. It definitely sucks, and it sucks for Ole Miss because, like, hey, I know they're not going to the SEC championship, but they're fixing to be in the playoff, and they're going to be missing Lane Kiffin. They're going to be missing I believe, their offensive coordinator has said that he's leaving to go to LSU with Lane. So they're going to be without that. What made LSU special this year? It was their offense. And the masterminds behind that was probably Lane and the offensive coordinator, and both those people are gone, right? So, and their defensive coordinator is Pete Golding, is now the head coach. So, I don't know. Ole Miss is in a tough spot, and it sucks that it went like that for the players, but um, it'll be interesting. I think Lane will have some success with LSU. Let's just number one, he's good at the portal, and then he's good at recruiting just in general. And LSU is in a sweet spot. Got Texas. We've got a lot of area that he could cover pretty well.
Agreed. I thought there was just kind of this national campaign to keep him at Ole Miss. Like,
Yeah,
oh, the grass isn't necessarily greener. And it's just like, that's true. Like, if he wanted to stay at Ole Miss, like, I could understand. Like, maybe he's
yeah.
happy there. But, like, people are acting like he's making this crazy decision to go to LSU. And I don't think it's that crazy. Obviously, LSU is one of the best programs in the country. And I really think there's not enough talk about this. Is that maybe I'm wrong on this. This isn't a hill I'm going to die on because maybe there's something I'm not getting. But I don't understand why it would be so bad to keep Lane Kiffin there to coach his team through the rest of the season. Because if you want to win at all, you probably need him coaching throughout the playoffs. And the athletic director kind of saying, no, no, we don't want to do that because of how that could affect recruiting. Well, yeah, that could affect next year, but you know what's going to affect next year? Lane Kiffin not being on your team anyway. So I don't know. I would have let Lane Kiffin continue to coach the rest of the season, continue to coach his team. I don't understand why it would have that much of an impact. You've made it this far. Let him finish the job.
So
But
Bill Cowher, that the guy that's on CBS, that was the Pittsburgh Steelers coach, said that they made the
yeah,
right decision on letting Lane Kiffin go, or not letting him coach, because I guess his point was he could just be there for another month, convincing them why they should follow him to LSU. And I don't know if Lane Kiffin would really do that or not. I mean, he probably would do that to a couple players, but I don't know. I
I,
mean,
I know that's the argument, and I've heard that argument. And again, maybe there's something I'm not understanding because that's what a lot of people are saying. But my thing is like, look, he's already taking most of the staff with him anyway.
yeah,
You're probably going to still lose some players. It's not like he doesn't have their phone numbers. You can still call them and talk to them. To me, it's like you kind of have to put next year aside at this point and say, hey, we're 11-1, and we've got a real
this is
shot to
like your
win.
Super Bowl year, man. Because
Right, right. This
in
may be
all
your only
reality,
chance. Right.
in all reality, next year, I mean, at best, man, you're probably looking to just, I don't know, be bowl eligible, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to
Yes.
be in a rebuild.
Yeah, because you got to. I think Chambliss, who has done very well for them. I think what is he, a sophomore or something? And to be honest with you, I think it'd be unwise of Chambliss to stay at Ole Miss because his success largely has come from Lane's calling ability in development. So I think it's almost a foregone conclusion that he's probably going to go to um, LSU with Lane, and there for a little bit, Chambliss was in discussion with the Heisman. I mean, there were a couple weeks that he was in that discussion. I mean, he's had a pretty good season with them. I think it honestly, like, I think regardless if Lane was recruiting for the whole month, number one, I think Lane has enough respect for Ole Miss not to just completely gut them. I think he'd go about it in a respectful way, um, of like not poaching per se the players from Ole Miss. Um, I think a lot of it. I'm actually kind of surprised there's as much like 50-50 on this, to be honest with you. The only thing that comes to mind as far as like between the Ole Miss and the LSU thing, and I kind of touched on this like a week or two ago or whatever. Forgot who it was. Oh, maybe Kirby Smart or whatever. I forgot who it was, but it was actually like a staffer with Nick Saban or whatever, or maybe it was Nick Saban. I don't know. They said, or like Nick Saban had his like thing on the door or whatever, and they asked him like, "Why did you do that?" And he was like, "Because I'm the head coach." And he was like, and they were like basically saying like, "You're not going to be head coach for long," or whatever. Basically saying they revolve through coaches so much. Whereas at Ole Miss, he's like the golden boy kind of thing. So that's the only thing that I think Ole Miss really had was like Lane could go. I mean, Lane would probably be put on a pedestal if he went and won like 2 or 3 championships. But I think if he goes and wins one championship, LSU is really not going to kind of bat an eye and treat him any different. Really and truly.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, but I don't even know how true that is because if he can be consistent, it's not like he has to literally win it every year. Now, you
Well,
can't
think
have
about
too
Les
many
Miles,
championships.
though. Think about Les Miles.
Lewis Miles kind of fell off.
Well, he definitely. I'm not saying he didn't. I completely agree with you there. He really did. But the guy was like a 10-2 machine, man. I mean, at the end there, he may have had like an 8-4 year or something like that. I forgot all the rec. I mean, but he won a championship in what, 07? Went to the championship game, I think, in 12 or 13 and lost. But I mean, that was against a really good Alabama team. But and then after that, it was just 10-2, 10-2, whatever. Anyway,
I mean, that's true. That's true. And I guess, again, and this is for all teams, but readjust your expectations because it's not going to be undefeated every year. It's probably not the
yeah,
case
that's
anymore.
true. Yeah, that's true, especially with the new format.
Right. Okay. I don't really have much else to say. I guess the only other thing I wanted to briefly mention is I don't know if you've watched LSU OU. And
Well,
I
at first
did.
I was like, "Oh man," I was like, "As if OU lost that game, it would dampen Texas's win over OU." You know?
Oh, I say I don't agree with you. I yes, it would, but that would have been Texas's best chance to get into the playoffs because then OU's a three loss
Well,
team.
that's okay. That's true, I guess. Actually, from
You need
that,
all the spots you can get, and that would have opened
yes,
up a spot. I don't know if it would have opened up a spot for Texas, but it would have opened up a spot. But
yeah,
just quickly, OU. I mean, look, at the end of the day, they went into Alabama and won. They can compete with teams, but they can also just be really flat. And I'm sorry, LSU at this point of the season is just not that great.
yeah,
And their offense is just going to be so limited, like to the point where they just don't have much of a shot to go far in the playoffs. Depending on the matchup, obviously they could win some games, but
yeah. It would just have to be like a really run heavy offense.
yeah,
Yeah, BYU, I think they can match up well against.
that would be a slugfest.
Yeah, it would.
Funny enough, you say they match up well with BYU. I think BYU matches up well with them. I think BYU actually may be thinking that could be a game we could possibly win,
Yeah,
just because it'll be like a low scoring affair. But obviously, I would take OU in that game. But
yeah,
I'm just saying, of all the teams in the top 10, they seem the most flawed to me. Like, they just aren't going to be able to do much offensively. So, that's kind of just my thoughts on OU. And I guess that's all I have for the weekend. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up, talk about in terms of the games or just anything?
I guess my thought is like, what are your thoughts on these premier schools hiring some of these group of five coaches? Like the USF guy, I don't know how long he was there for, had a couple good years. Tulane, they've had a couple good years. Florida hired him. Memphis coach, I actually don't really know anything about him too much, to be honest with you. I'll be honest. But
I don't
you know,
know.
you got to
Like,
think about think about this, right? Florida hired Billy Napier, which at the time was at ULM. Where did that get them? People were very high on Billy Napier with what he was able to do at ULM. Fired him after what 4 seasons, whatever the case may be. And I kind of feel like, to an extent, not any disrespect to this guy because he could be completely different, but for all intents and purposes, you're pretty much doing the same thing. A really a top tier group of five coach coming in, bringing him into the SEC. Maybe he can pull off things that Napier couldn't do. Napier was able to bring players in. It's just it will come down to the coaching. But and I get with Arkansas, I get it. Like it's like it's going to be harder to attract like a top tier coach. Okay, I get it. You're going to have to probably go to the group of five. But anyway, and maybe it was like a part of it they had no choice. Oh, another thing too before we forget, we can kind of stay with those teams too. But uh, Pat Fitzgerald, longtime Northwestern coach, hired at Michigan State, which I think that's a good hire. And Kirk Herbstreit brought that up like 2 weeks ago or whatever on what's it called, Game Day. Pat Fitzgerald. I know Northwestern's kind of like there for a while. They were like 8-4. I mean, they were a pretty good Big Ten team there for a while. I know they've kind of had a couple down years, but think about Northwestern. Is that an easy or hard place to win? Hard. So if you're able to get over bowl eligibility pretty consistently, that's a pretty good mark, in my opinion. So anyway, that'll be interesting. I think because there is think about this, man. If Michigan State is able to get pretty decent, think about just where Michigan's at right now. Ohio State. I don't know. I think the Big Ten is more fun, like when Michigan State is good, and like obviously the other teams have to be good too, right? But you know, huge in-state rivalry with Michigan, um, Ohio State. Like I can't remember if it was a Ohio State game or whatever, but or maybe it was a Michigan game. It was probably like around 2014 to 2016 when Michigan State blocked a kick from Michigan and returned it for a touchdown and won the game. I can't remember if that was them or not, but or anyway. Do you have anything
Yeah.
to say about the coaches? I guess.
Well, first of all, yeah, I think the Big Ten is a conference just to watch out for because I think they're going to just be getting better and better with some of these teams in the middle. But also something that's recently breaking is Mark Stoops looks like he's going to be fired from Kentucky, and that's interesting. They got blown out this week, 41-0. It's interesting because he was supposed to be A&M's coach a couple years ago till the fan base revolted. But
Would you have taken him?
I could understand the argument for him. I would have taken Elko over him. I wasn't that upset about it because you do have to look at, hey, it's Kentucky. And could Mark Stoops have been, I don't know. I would have preferred more of a Grand Slam hire, and I thought Elko was kind of close to that. So I don't know how I feel about it. I think they just feel like, I just don't know what you expect at Kentucky. Like, what are your goals?
Well,
Like, they
exactly.
they finished the season kind of well, and then they just got blown out by Louisville, which that sucks. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like Mark Stoops is the type of guy
He's the
right
only
out of
reason why that team's been relevant in the
coordinators.
past 5 years.
Yeah, I don't know. But as far as what you're saying, these group of five coaches, I think these teams have no choice because it seems like a lot
I
of,
guess that's true too.
yeah, they're all wanting to stay with their programs, which I kind of like.
Yeah.
So, so yeah,
Basically, what it'll come down to is, do they get lucky and pick the right one? I mean, obviously, that's always the question, right? But it's kind of like more times than not, these guys have a couple Cinderella years in the group of five. They come up here and they may have one good year and then they're dog crap the rest of the time. I don't know.
and there's a major program that has not hired their coach yet, and that is Penn State.
Oh yeah,
You
that's
know,
true. I forgot, dude. I funny enough, all the buzz is elsewhere, not even there.
yeah. Now I'm seeing. I don't know if it's true, but they apparently have been targeting Kellen DeBoer. And it did make me think if Alabama would have lost to Auburn, if
Oh
he would have said, you know what, this Alabama thing is too much for me. Like, this is just unrealistic expectations for me. I can go win
well,
at
and
Penn
being in
State.
Nick Saban's shadow, I mean that. No matter what he does, he's never going to live up to Nick Saban, no matter what the guy does. And in that sense, I feel bad for him.
Yeah. So I don't know where Penn State's going to go. They apparently have been talking about some, NFL names like Joe Brady from Buffalo Bills. So I don't know. That's going to be one to watch. But at this point, it looks like they're probably not going to get like a big name. So I don't
I
know.
don't know. I think Joe Brady could be interesting because he was the offensive guy that helped Joe Burrow in 2019 championship. um, he was at the Panthers for a little bit with Matt Rule. I don't know. That could be interesting. I mean, they talked about Manny Diaz there for a little bit because he was defensive coordinator with James Franklin. For trying to think what else. Yeah, I can't believe I forgot about that. Actually, that will be very interesting to see who they choose to be their head coach. Hmm.
Yep.
I think they threw out Pat Fitzgerald there for a little bit too at that job before he took the Michigan State job.
Yeah,
Obviously,
it's
probably a month
definitely
ago,
been very quiet. Like you're not hearing a lot of names around
which is
teams.
fine. I like that, to be honest. That probably means they're being like very like they're looking at all their options.
Right.
As they should.
Yep. Okay. Well, I pretty much am done, and I think we may both have to get rolling now. So I say we call it. It was a great week for the most part, and now we have conference championships and playoffs, and of course, my team will be able to experience that, and yours won't. So that's it. That's another episode of Blown Coverage, and we'll see you next
Both of
time.
them 11-1.